Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Pursuit Live. We are so incredibly fortunate tonight to have the one and only Sara Gamache. Sara, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
So, Dave, you want to start kicking things off, or?
Yeah. Obviously, we're trying something new here tonight, and we got a couple different angles going. So, if at any point anybody has a delay or we're having problems, just please let us know. We work on that promptly. So, Sara, thank you again for joining us tonight.
Yes, I'm excited that I get to be your guinea pig for your guys' new technology you're trying to work out.
We'll see. So far.
Yeah, Rob, just fill in for a second for me.
All right. So, I read up a lot on your biology, and it's incredible. Like how we've now met so many incredible people all over the United States and, other countries, and how we all have something so similar in common. It really is incredible. Like everybody's stories are somehow a little related. So Sara, if you'd like, let's kick it off and let our audience hear about everything that how you've gotten to where you are today.
Okay, so I'm from Washington State, and I grew up basically in a hunting family. My parents were divorced, but my dad was the hunter. And so that's basically how I got into it at, I think, age 11 was when I started hunting. And at that point, it was mostly just a way for me to spend time with my dad. When you're a kid, you're not as into it as we are once we become adults. So at that point, it was kind of just cool for me to be able to go get out in the woods and have like one-on-one time with my dad. That was really the only quality time that I got to spend with him growing up. So that was something I always look forward to. And then my younger brother, he also got into hunting. He's 4 years younger than me. So as I got into my teenage years, my brother and I started hunting together a lot. And so it kind of just became this really awesome family bonding experience that we look forward to every year. And then as I got, I'd say into my early 20s, late teens, early 20s, I really fell in love with solo hunting. And I found that I got a lot of enjoyment going out in the woods and being by myself. I felt very independent. I felt very accomplished when I was successful. So when I wasn't in the woods with my dad or my brother, I was doing it a lot on my own. And then I got married in my early 20s, and my husband had never hunted before. He's in the Army, so I always joke that he hunts people. I hunt animals, but he ended up getting into hunting because I told him, this is a big part of my lifestyle. And so then I got to, share that with him. And now we're at a point in our life, we've been married for 15 years, where we have two children who are 10 and 13, and now we are raising them to hunt. So it's kind of like came full circle for me in a way, as, it started with the family tradition growing up, and now I'm able to pass it down to my children. And that's kind of, that's where I'm at in my life right now at that point. And it's always evolving. And that's what I think is cool about hunting and the journey, is just like all those things I just explained. It's constantly changing and evolving, and what you get out of it and your passion for it is constantly changing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. So now my daughter is 6 and my son just turned 3. And I have now been taking my daughter out with me to check trail cameras, bait bear sites, and you could tell she's into it and she loves it. And if she wasn't, that'd be totally fine too.
Yeah.
And she kind of like you, or what it sounds like was that in the beginning, you kind of really weren't into the sports. You were more of like an outdoorsy country, and that's exactly how she is. Like she tried lacrosse. She didn't like it. She tried soccer. She didn't really like it. But every time I go hiking, she's right there with me. Every time we go.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate because I also grew up like that. My dad built a cabin. He would bring my sister and I up there every year, and we would go hunting. We would go fishing. We would go on hikes. We do all that stuff, so you know, a lot like you, where it all starts is when you're younger.
Right. Yeah. Most people that you talk to, if you ask them how they got into hunting, I would say about 90%, at least in my experience, say that it was because they went usually with their father. I think that's changing more now as more women are getting into it. And I heard a statistic that kids are 75% more likely to become hunters if the mother is a hunter. And so I think that's really cool. And yeah, we're definitely now to a point where my kids are both old enough where we can all do it together as a family. And, you know, that's different than traditional sports. When your kids are in traditional sports, you're driving them around to practices and sitting in the stands watching a boring baseball game sometimes. Where if you can get your kids into like archery or even shooting guns or hunting, that's something that you guys can all do together and have that bonding experience. So I think that's part of what makes it so special.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's jump into some of your most epic hunts. You know, you can obviously that you have been all over the place. You know, what was your most memorable? And I have to hear about this line.
Well, that could be one of the most memorable as well. I would say maybe my Cape Buffalo hunt is a big one for me. I did that a few years ago, and at that point when I had done it, I think there was only one or two other females that had successfully killed a Cape Buffalo with a bow, and Joella Bates being one of them. She's actually, I think, one of the only women to do the Big Five with a bow. And so I wanted to do that hunt because I wanted the challenge, because there weren't very many, you know, other women out there trying to do that. And it was dangerous. And I kind of have developed this enjoyment for dangerous hunts and getting that adrenaline rush. And so I'd say that was my first big kind of dangerous hunt that I did. And it was successful. I accomplished my goal. You know, I killed a Cape Buffalo with just one arrow, which is pretty awesome because they are really big, tough creatures. And like I said, very dangerous. We got mock charged by the buffalo like 3 or 4 times before I was actually able to get an arrow in it. And so it was exciting, you know, like your adrenaline's pumping. I have my PH, which that's what they call the guides over there, you know, telling me like, okay, we've been mock charged several times, which is kind of the pattern with those animals. They'll do that, but then after a while, like they will fully come for you. That's kind of their warning. And I just remember him telling me like, okay, we've had 3 warnings from this animal. Like we have to get this done. And I was like, yeah, no pressure, you know? So all of that, you know, to be able to experience all those different emotions and the adrenaline really like took that hunt to like the next level for me, where after that I was like, okay, I need to do more hunts like this. And so that was kind of what prompted doing the lion hunt, which is a hunt that I did in August.
That's awesome. I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to getting that rush, where up here and we're in the Northeast, we're in New York, and everybody hunts whitetail, everybody, you know, and after a while it's like, all right, you know, going to shoot another deer. Obviously it's to put meat on the table, but at the end of the day, you're shooting another deer. It's almost like you lose that rush. So then I got Chris into bear hunting, and now that is like the next rush, because here's a big animal that can kill you, you know, and so much is involved with worrying about wind direction and smell and, you know, so many different things that it is a rush when you have that bear finally coming in that's been a ghost, you know, this whole time.
Right.
You know, so for you being able to do that, those are definitely on my bucket list, you know, where I can't wait for that rush. I can't wait for that feeling again that, you know, and we'll get there at some point.
Well, that's just because we got to get you to Africa
warn
now.
you, and it gets expensive too. That's the downfall, but it is fun and I enjoy it. And so, yeah, so I did the Cape Buffalo, and then the lion hunt was this year. And my next big one is in 2027. I'm going to do a brown bear hunt with my bow.
That's awesome. Up in Alaska?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh,
that's
man.
my number one bucket list, and it's going to happen, and I'm looking forward to it.
Very nice. How was the lion hunt?
It was just as exciting as the Cape Buffalo hunt. A little bit different. My husband was with me on the lion hunt, which was cool because he did not go with me. He's probably deployed, I'm guessing, when I did my Cape Buffalo hunt. So to have him there was special. I enjoyed that. But I mean, they definitely, before we got out in the field and started stalking this lion, went over exactly all the rules, how things were going to be done. You know, you can't turn your back on the lion. We have to stay in a group. We have to always keep something, be like a bush or something between us and the lion. There can't be like any open windows because they see that as an opportunity to charge. You know, I was told, like, obviously if I shoot and it's a bad shot and the lion starts coming towards us, they have to shoot it with a gun, which I didn't want that to happen. You know, the whole goal of the hunt was to do it with just an arrow. And I ended up actually having to do it with 2 arrows. Lucky for me, after I shot it the first time, you know, it didn't come towards us. It ran off, and we were able to relocate it and put another stock on it. And he was hurt badly enough. It was a pretty good shot that he didn't have the energy to come at us. So I was really grateful that it went down with, you know, just 2 arrows and no one got hurt. You know, that's always the thing about these hunts, is you're not only worried about your own safety, but the people that you're with. You know, like I said, I had my husband with me. So it's like, if I screw up, I'm putting his life at risk. I'm really close with my PH. I've hunted with him now for like 5 or 6 years, and I obviously care about his life and everyone else that's involved. So it's always nice when the hunt is over and you kind of have that relief of we're safe. It went exactly how we wanted. And so, yeah, I was very excited about the lion hunt as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Producer Chris here. He was actually in Africa this past year, 2024, right? Early.
I don't know what you're talking about. I know nothing about safari.
Well,
I don't safari hunt. I don't do any of that. I've never even heard of this place.
Well, either way, he also got a Cape Buffalo. However,
you did.
I did, but I didn't do it with my bow.
That's okay. Still fine with the rifle.
Well, this is the story behind. We went bow hunting, and we were doing a high veld bow hunt, and halfway through the hunt, I kind of made that decision that I wanted to hunt a buffalo while I was there. I shoot Matthews, and both of mine are set up at 70 pounds. And my PH at the time didn't want to take me out with a 70-pound bow to shoot a buffalo. He was like,
yeah.
Well, I think you could do it, maybe, but like, I don't want to take the chance. So I ended up, with the rifle. But yeah. So the first of what will ultimately end up being multiple Cape Buffalo for me. It's an absolute rush, and I think you described it perfectly.
Yeah. What was the closest you guys got to it when you were stalking?
When we got to this guy, it was 65 yards, but the closest we actually got to buffalo was 10 yards. We got charged a couple times walking through the bush. It just, you can't understand it unless you actually like experience it, where these massive animals hide in like the smallest, darkest holes that they can find. And when you're in the thickest stuff, there's one way out for them. And we had one pass right by us at 10 yards, charging right at us, and like we had to stop. We were like, oh, let's just sit down for 10 minutes. We gotta catch our breath. That was a little close.
Yeah.
I actually there was another one that actually walked up, and he was 15 yards facing us, where we initially came down a hill, and we were actually on the buffalo that I wanted to shoot. I didn't have a shot because we needed to cut across this little clearing to get behind a tree to get to where we had saw them. From the time that we had glassed them, made this 500-yard stalk, and we had to cut through this last clearing, they had started walking towards us, which we didn't anticipate. And when they rounded the tree to come in our direction, we had to just sit down and stop. There was nothing we could do.
Yeah.
And they wanted to walk up the path that we were on. And one got to about 15. I had my camera on my shoulder. I had my 375 on my shoulder. So I'm like catcher squatting like this, like, oh man, this is not how this should go down. So I set my camera down, and I had the GoPro running, but not my main camera. and you could actually see because it just fell off the rock and was just kind of somewhat filming. And this buffalo came to about 15 yards before he actually realized me and my PH were there. It was just staring at us for probably 10, 15 seconds. And it was, you wouldn't think that, you know, when you're staring, I explained it to my PH. It was like, you're literally staring at the physical manifestation of death right in front of you.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was the calmest, like most peaceful moment I've ever had in my life. And I will never forget that moment. So again, if we'll get Rob over there one day.
Absolutely. You know what?
He
I
likes-
keep hearing these stories. I think I'm going to end up doing it.
So I do have a couple of questions because I know it wouldn't be an episode of Pursuit Live if Dave wasn't having technical difficulties. So I'm here to bail him out. But I do have some questions about Africa because these guys never let me talk about it. And finally, I got the opportunity.
Let's do it.
So I got to ask you, what did your buffalo end up measuring?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't keep track of any of that kind of stuff with my animals. He's big, like way outside the ears, like he's a trophy.
Was he over 40 inches?
Yes.
So for anybody that's listening, for a buffalo to grow over 40 inches, they consider that a true trophy buffalo because of the amount of fighting that they do and the age that they have to get to grow that much mass on these horns. It's truly incredible. Now, did you have your lion aged by any chance? Like, how old was the lion?
Haven't done that either. No,
Okay.
So I'm not sure. I could probably find out though, but I know the Cape Buffalo, they also go by the bosses, the hard bosses,
Yeah.
right? So there can be big ones that aren't hard bossed. And so that's another like showing that that's an old mature animal. So I know he had the really hard bosses and he was over 40 inches. And then the lion, I'm not sure about the age on the lion.
How long were those shots?
Mine with the Cape Buffalo was 25 yards, which is crazy because Chris, as you could probably attest to, they're so big and it seems like, I think got to like 40 yards, but we knew 25 was our goal. And so we're at 40 yards and I'm like, okay, like we can do this, right? And my guide's like, no, we're still at 40 yards. And I was like, this thing feels like it's in my lap. So to have to like keep closing the distance to get to 25 yards is just insane. But for penetration issues with the bow, like that's really what you want to do. And then for the lion, I think the first shot was like 40 and the second shot was pretty close to that, maybe like 43, 44 yards.
Yeah,
so a little bit further.
Yeah, not for nothing. I've been watching some of the clips of you shooting and you're hitting targets at what, 60 yards? You know?
Yeah, when I practice,
if not longer,
yeah.
you know, like
Yeah, and I did a lot of training for that Cape Buffalo hunt, like a full year. For one, physically, I had to train to be able to pull back 75 pounds. And so going to CrossFit every day and trying to build muscle and slowly, like I usually shoot at about 65. So I only had to do a 10-pound, but that's pretty significant, especially for a female going from 65 to 75. Like it took me quite a while to get to that point. And then doing my arrow build and making sure that, we can tune the arrow good because I was shooting like a 730 grain arrow. And then I flew to Texas so that I could test the arrow so that I could actually do a hunt where I was testing the penetration. I did like just a ton of research, like listening to podcasts and, going over with my PH, like perfect shot placement and all of that. So that hunt, there was a lot of time and planning put into that one. And same with the lion hunt, but it wasn't as important to have, like, I think I was only at like 70 pounds with the lion. And I didn't do like any crazy heavy arrow build. I was shooting like what I would shoot for like elk over here.
Now, let me ask you this: what kind of broadheads did you use for the buffalo?
Tough broadheads, I think is what they were called. Yeah. Yep. Huge. They were like 300 grain.
That's big, but not for nothing. I think 75 pounds is heavy for anybody. You know,
it wasn't
that's a
comfortable.
draw. I
And
bet.
then when you have adrenaline going through your body, like people know, like there's been times when I've had adrenaline going, I can't pull back like 65 pounds because I'm like shaking, you know. So having to like keep your adrenaline under control and keep your nerves under control after you've been mock charged 3 times, and then you're at 25 yards and having to get 75 pounds pulled back. Yeah, it was a challenge.
Now let me kind of dig into this a little bit, because now that we're going down the safari path, it's going to be hard to get me off it. Now, what did you find most difficult about? Well, first, let me ask you, where in Africa were you hunting?
In South Africa, in the Western Cape.
Okay. Now, what is something that you found very, like, on your very first time to Africa? What was something that you found very difficult to adjust to, as you know, compared to hunting back in the States?
Honestly, this is probably not the response you're expecting, but just the time difference and the travel. Like by the time you get to Africa, because I'm flying from Washington State, you've done like 40 hours of travel, and I need a lot of sleep. Like I need like 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So by the time I get there and then get used to the whatever 19-hour time difference, like that was hard for me. Like it took me like 2 or 3 full days to feel like normal, but I was hunting right away. So going out in the field and being like groggy and having jet lag and not being mentally sharp like I'm used to being if I was on a hunt back home, I would say that's always the hardest part for me when I go to Africa. And I've been like 6 times now, I think. And the travel, it just never gets easier. It sucks every time.
So what was something that you did other than kind of just your bow build and kind of getting out and practicing? What's something that you kind of did to mentally prepare for your first African hunt?
I mean, I talked to a lot of people that had been to Africa. Well, I had gone to Africa actually when I was 18 on a mission trip. So non-hunting related. I traveled all through South Africa, and I've traveled my whole life. So I'm pretty comfortable with traveling and being in foreign countries. And the fact that I had already been there helped. As far as like specifically the hunting aspect of it, trying to mentally prepare myself that these animals are so much faster and like jump the string, versus the elk that I'm used to hunting back home. So trying, and also like the shot placement, like you're going straight up the leg, and they don't have like the big scapula, like where you're trying to get behind the shoulder blade like you would on a deer or elk. So trying to wrap my brain around that and like telling myself, okay, remember when you go to aim, it's not going to be like the normal spot that you aim at, that your brain is used to. And then also wanting to aim a little bit lower, knowing that they're going to probably duck. So that was hard to get used to for me.
Do you think you'd ever try to do one of those hunts with your recurve?
Yeah, I've brought in my recurve before. I actually brought it on this last trip, and I didn't end up using it. By the time I got the lion hunt done and then hunted with my daughter and my son, I ended up shooting a zebra, but I did it with my compound bow. But I would love to go over there and just do exclusive with my recurve. That's probably my next goal.
That's a good goal. That's tough. That's
now shameless plug time. Now I know you said you have a good relationship with your PH. Who did you who did you use when you went to Africa?
It's called Ngili Safaris. And the reason why I chose them, well, he had reached out to me, but there's like a ton of African outfitters that have reached out to me over the years. And why I chose him is because he was a very accomplished bow hunter. He's like the Cameron Haynes of South Africa. Like he has all these records, and he almost exclusively bow hunts. And that was important to me, because that was my goal, was to go over there and exclusively bow hunt. And so that's why I chose him. He's also there's a lot of like kind of scam stuff that can happen over in Africa where they take advantage of us Americans not knowing any better. And so I've heard a lot of horror stories. And I just felt immediately like he was a good person. My intuition told me I can, trust him. He was very honest. And like I said, we've built a relationship over the years, and I've gone over there several times by myself and with my family. My husband's gone over there by himself. And yeah, we love it. I would like to try other places in Africa because I've only ever gone to South Africa. So eventually I would like to try some other countries.
Well, I got a guy for you if you want to travel outside.
Do you?
Yeah, it's a guy. He's a PH, and he's a friend of ours, and we hunted with him in South Africa, at one outfit that actually his brother-in-law owns, and he is a part owner in another outfit. They do Namibia, Mozambique, and he is like his specialty is lions. That's what this kid does. So he's yeah, lion's on my list. That I think that's it's kind of up in the air between lion or elephant for my 40th birthday, which is fast approaching. So I'm gonna have to start figuring this out pretty quick. Kind of getting off topic of Africa, because I could sit here for the next 4.5 days and talk about this with you, and I know that's not what I know. That's Rob will never let me hear the end of it if I continue down this path. So what else in the world kind of intrigues you? Like you say you're into dangerous game hunting and like kind of adventure bow hunting. Is there anywhere else in the world that you would want to go and experience at least once with the bow?
I honestly, this is going to sound crazy because it's not international, but just going to Alaska or Canada.
I'll allow it. It's
I bet like New Zealand was my big one for a long time, and I did my New Zealand hunt, so I had checked that one off. And internationally, I don't have anything like really high on my list, as of right now. Like I said, I wanted to get the brown bear hunt done, but maybe like some of that goat country up in Canada where it's just like the most desolate, off the grid wilderness. Like that's the kind of stuff that I really love.
We might have a guy for you.
Another guy for me. Perfect.
Well, we might.
We got guys everywhere. You want to go to Greenland for muskox and caribou? We got a guy.
I've thought about that. You want to
go to Portugal for red stag? We got a guy. We got lots of guys.
Yeah. Well, Portugal would be cool because I kind of did jump on the red stag train without even realizing it, because I did my New Zealand one. Well, Scotland. So my first one was in Scotland, and that was like 5 years ago. And then I did my New Zealand trip and got one. And then I went to Argentina and got one. So I'm like, well, where else can I go that would be cool to hunt red stag? So Portugal, that would be cool.
Well, I got a guy.
Okay. Okay.
So all right, I got one more question, and then we'll kind of, I'll give it back to Rob here for a little bit. So you kind of been bow hunting now for a little while. Now, what really keeps you motivated to keep bow hunting? Like what's that spark inside your head that just kind of lights that fire and keeps you going?
Honestly, like the fact that it's always challenging, like especially when I picked up the recurve, I'm someone that always has to have a challenge, like else I get really bored. Like I can't have like a mundane lifestyle. I always have to challenge myself in some way and push myself to the limits. And I feel like bow hunting always does that for me. No matter where you're at, like it's never easy. Like there's no, like I hunt like North Idaho and stuff, and I just get my ass kicked, and people are like, why would you want to do that? It sounds miserable. It looks miserable. And I'm like, it is, but at the same time, like it's so rewarding. That's like at the end of the day, when you're successful, there's just nothing better than that feeling of working your ass off, going through hell, having a hard hunt, and then reaping the rewards of it. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of other things that I've done in life that I experience that to that level. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And if it starts to get boring, then I'm just like, what's the most dangerous animal I can go hunt? And then I just go do that. And it resparks everything.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I would say the most dangerous animal apparently was a bushman, but you're not allowed to hunt those in Africa.
That is there. Yeah, there are those out there. I didn't encounter any like one-on-one, but they did show up on one of the pieces we were hunting at one point. Poachers did, and they had to chase them off. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a dangerous place all around, especially like me going there by myself when I did that Cape Buffalo hunt. I don't know if you guys remember. So was it 3 years ago? The riots in Johannesburg that were happening, and people were getting killed left and right. And I was flying into Johannesburg like when that was happening, and I was by myself. But I had this hunt planned, you know, for a couple years, and like I said, I'd been training for it. And luckily, my husband, he kind of just lets me do what I want, or knows that I'm going to do what I want. So he's like, I ain't holding you back if you still want to go. But everyone was like, don't do it. It's too dangerous. And I was like, oh, it's, you know, part of the adventure. And it was fine. Like I have never experienced any danger in that regards in Africa. I've been lucky, but I also go straight to Johannesburg, get on a flight to Kimberley, which is like an hour flight. And then I get picked up by my PH. So the only time I've ever really traveled the country is when I was 18 and I did that mission trip. And we did travel all the way up to Swaziland. And there was some sketchy things that we encountered, but nothing to where like my life was at risk.
I will say if you go back and you drive we drove from Johannesburg to Oranjestad, and we considered flying it up, and it's a long drive. It's like a 4.5, 5 hour drive from Johannesburg up to where we were hunting. But it's just driving through that country is it's something you got to experience at least once.
Oh yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. So
yeah. Well, I was happy I got to take our kids because we did drive through enough of it. When we got picked up from the airport, we had like a 4-hour drive to kind of let them see how other people live, you know, like how fortunate we are. And that was part of why I wanted to take them, is so that they could experience that.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take my kid, but Rob, he's apparently he's afraid of planes. So I mean,
Hey, listen, it's called responsibility. Yeah.
Well,
someday.
From New York, the travel wouldn't be as bad. See, I have to go from like Washington all the way.
It was still 19.
Country.
It was 19 hours in the air alone for us.
Yeah.
We connect, and I could keep talking about this forever. We connected through London, so it was 6 hours to London. Then we had to lay over there. Then it was 12.5, 13 hours down to Jayberg, and it was, you know, the flights weren't bad. I'm not gonna lie. You know, definitely we're bigger guys. Me and my hunting partner John. So we definitely had to fly business class because there's no way we would have fit anywhere else for that amount of time.
Yeah, I always need like a good solid year or two to forget about the travel before I'm ready. It's kind of like when you have a kid, and if your kid's really hard, you need like a couple years before you're like, okay, I'm ready for another one. That's how it is for me with Africa, because and I travel a lot. Like I've traveled my whole life, so travel doesn't bother me, but that, I don't know, it kills me every time.
What do you got, Rob? You've been real quiet since I
actually.
joined.
Well, I'm just listening, taking it all in. I do have a couple questions. Antelope with a bow.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading questions. Is someone keeping tabs on the questions people ask on the live?
I'm sure Randy is. Yeah.
Okay. Antelope with a bow.
Yes.
Are you talking about the one that I got last year?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an insanely hard hunt. That was spot and stock. First time I'd ever hunted antelope, and it was extremely hard.
Where'd you go?
To Colorado. I went with my buddy Alex Nestor. He has like a guiding business out there for antelope and mule deer. And I don't know how tall he is. He's like 6'4" or 6'5". And trying to just keep up with him, like when we're trying to make moves and have to like go really fast to try to get somewhere to get a little bit of cover, I'm like running full speed just to try to keep up with his like walking pace. So it was, physically it was hard. We didn't use any decoys or anything, and we had zero cover. I think I had taken 2 shots on antelope and missed before I got the one that I got. And they were both like 70-yard shots in high wind. So extremely long shots. I think my shot on the antelope I killed was like 55 yards, really windy. And I think actually, I think had to shoot it 2 or 3 times. I think it's the animal I've had to shoot the most. I've only had to shoot one other animal more than once. But I think that antelope I had to shoot 3 times. Because the first shot, I think I spined him. So he dropped right away, but he was just paralyzed. And yeah, so they're tough animals, hard to hunt. I'm glad I did it that way instead of, most people do it out of a blind over water, which I can't sit. Like, I can't do that style of hunting. That's really hard for me to do. So I'm glad I did the spot and stock. And I don't know if I would do it again. It's like one of those things where, like, okay, I got an antelope with my bow spot and stock. I don't know. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, Chris and I have where are we going? Montana this year?
Yeah.
For antelope.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to gauge from other people that have already done it, like what we could possibly be getting ourselves into. I think we're going to be the first ones at the outfitter. It's going to be hot, and we're going to be over a water hole.
Okay.
But the outfitter said, he's like, average is going to be a 50-yard shot. Even
at the water hole, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're sitting, that is how most people do it. Cause that's like, someone told me the success rate of spot and stock antelope with the bow, and it's stupid low. I mean, it's like elk. It's like 10% or something. So most people do the blind over water, but if you get the opportunity to do spot and stock, you should try it. It is fun. It's frustrating, but it's fun.
Yeah, I would definitely love to while we're out there. We're going to be out there for 4 days. Okay. So I think definitely want to try that. Absolutely.
Get a decoy. Like they make, the decoys that you can shoot through that you attach to your bow. Mm-hmm. I'd get one of those.
All right, we'll do that. Elk hunting. How many elk have you gotten? Have you gotten, do you have any crazy stories? How long were those shots?
I think I've gone 7 or 8 elk. Almost all of them have been solo. Over half of those were solo. I got 2 this year because I hunted North Idaho. So I shot the first time I've shot an elk with a rifle, because all my others were archery. Besides, I had 1 muzzleloader. So I shot a Roosevelt elk this year in Idaho. It was kind of cool. It was only a spike, but I was by myself. I was way the hell out, North Idaho, public land. First Rocky Mountain elk that I've gotten. First elk I've shot with a rifle, and it was on my birthday. So that was kind of cool. That was a kind of a special hunt for me this year.
And now, were those spot and stalk, or were you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for that hunt, sometimes what I do here in Washington is I'll hunt the regular season, the regular archery season on public land. And then if I don't get anything, there's a unit over here in Washington that has a late season from like November 21st to like December 14th. But I only have private land that I can hunt on for that portion of the season. So if I don't get anything on public land in September, I always have like my private that I can hunt for those other 2 weeks. So about half the time I'll get it in early season. The other half of the time I'll get it in the late season. And sometimes if it's late season, I will actually sit in a stand, which is not traditional way of elk hunting, but for over here, it works pretty well. So
that still sounds like a pretty good success rate. I'll tell you that. But I have no idea about elk hunting.
Yeah, I think and people do say like, oh, you've shot a lot of elk, but I've been hunting for a long time, since I think I started elk hunting when I was like 14. And then just the fact that I've lived over here my whole life, and Roosevelt elk, which is what we have here in Washington, are extremely easy to pattern. So when I've hunted the same public land, for 20 plus years, and I know exactly the trails that those elk use and where they're going to be at what times of year, what times of day. Like having that knowledge over 20 years, I would say is what has helped me be so successful.
Awesome.
So I want to start hunting in other states because I would like the challenge of not having that on, power of knowledge on my side. I would like more of a challenge and to hunt Rocky Mountain elk because I don't have a whole lot of experience. I'm mostly shooting Roosevelt. So I'm going to start putting in for other states like Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, stuff like that. I didn't do that in the past. I probably should have been putting in for points, but my husband was deployed so much that I didn't really have the opportunity to travel and do a bunch of hunts. I was pretty limited, but he's going to retire. So once he retires, that's going to open up the opportunity for both of us to travel and do some more hunting in some other states.
That's awesome.
Highly recommend New Mexico elk.
I'm hoping I can draw for that. Yeah, I'm going to put in with an outfitter this year, and I know that helps your chance of getting drawn. So we'll see.
Yeah. Chris, you want to ask your every episode question?
I can. All right. So I ask everybody this. Now, aside from your license and your weapon, obviously, what are 3 things you have to carry with you on every pursuit, whether it's in your pack or your pocket? What's got to go with you? Your most essential gear.
For what type of hunt? Just any hunt?
Any hunt. Your most essential gear that has to be with you every single time.
Well, are we talking like outside of like food and water? Because you obviously like have to have water. So if you're hunting in a place where you don't have a water source, you're gonna have to make sure you have plenty of water for the day or however long you're gonna hunt. If you have a water source like streams or whatever that you can get water from, then I always have like the tablets that you can put in, lots of snacks I love to eat. So high protein, high carb snacks. I usually always have my pistol on me, especially because I'm by myself and I'm bow hunting. So I always like to have that extra protection. So I always have my pistol and rain gear. I always have rain gear because especially where I'm from, you don't know what the weather is going to do. And it could go from being clear to torrential downpouring in a matter of minutes. And if you're out there and it starts raining and you get wet and you're cold, you're going to run into issues of hypothermia and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say those are my go-tos for what I always have.
What pistol and what caliber?
If I'm hunting in an area where there's not a lot of so in Washington, for instance, like we have black bear, we have cougars. I carry a 9mm. What do I have? Smith and Wesson. Yeah. And then for when I'm in bear country, like grizzly bear country, so North Idaho, I have Springfield XDM 10mm.
Nice.
So I go back and forth between those.
10mm.
Yeah. So I don't think it's really necessary to carry out here when I'm in Washington. Like I said, don't have as many threats. So I'm comfortable with just my 9mm, which might not even do the trick on a black bear, but I'm not at risk of a black bear attacking me like I am, when I'm in Idaho. And I am in like thick grizzly country when I'm in Idaho, way up north. So
have you seen any
unnerving.
Have you seen any while you're out there?
I have not. I've came across like kills that I've suspected are bear kills. Could be wolves too, because there's also a lot of wolves where I hunt. I have not seen one, which I'm grateful for because so here in Washington, there's a place that I hunt on public land that has a bunch of cats. Like if I put a trail camera out, the first animal I get is a cougar without fail every year. So there's a ton of them. And I do an elk camp in this area by myself. So I'm staying up there by myself. And I ran into this younger kid. He's probably in his 20s one year. And he's like, how did you get here so quickly? Because it was like just getting daylight. And it's like a hike to get there. Like it takes a while. And I was staying up there, right? Like my camp was up there. So I was like, well, I'm camping up here. He's like, there's a lot of cougar up here. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm aware I have them on my trail camera. And he's like, and you're staying up here by yourself? And I said, yeah. He said, screw that. I would like, he was a logger. So he had seen cougar in the woods firsthand. He's like, I would never. He's like, I wait until daylight before I even start hiking up here. And I was like, well, ignorance is bliss. And so I'm kind of like excited that I haven't seen anything yet, because I know the second that I have an encounter, I'll probably be like that guy. And I'm like, nope, not gonna be staying up here. So I've gotten lucky so far, but I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure I'll run into a cat or grizzly bear or something eventually.
Have you gotten a cat yet?
No, I'm actually going to go on a cat hunt in the next month or so. Like, I'm on call. We're kind of waiting for the weather, waiting for some good snow. I have a buddy of mine that's offered to take me, and it's going to be in Idaho. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for some snow and waiting for him to call, and hopefully my schedule works out to where I can head up there. And yeah, that's been a bucket list hunt of mine for a long time.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Someday. Got to add it to my list.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to before the states start like trying to put bans on all of it, like Colorado. I mean, get it done now, because who knows what's going to happen. In Washington, they're going to try to, like, they already outlawed, for bear, no baiting, no hound hunting. Then they took away spring bear season. So it's like they're just chipping away at it.
What was I just going to ask you? Oh, damn.
Well, listen, if we lose cat hunting here in the States, Rob, there's always lions and leopards.
Yeah. No,
That's
you know
true.
that's what it was. Wolves. Do you guys have wolves out there?
Not on the west side where we're at, but there are wolves in Washington. Yeah. So I don't have to worry about where I hunt. Like I said, when I'm in Idaho, there's a ton of wolves. I haven't seen a wolf either in the wild yet. I don't know that I'd be as worried seeing a wolf, but I think it'd be cool to see one. Cool to try to shoot one.
Yeah.
Seeing one wolf isn't the problem. It's when you run into like 4 or 5 of them that maybe it's time to start getting worried.
Yeah, then you're in trouble. Yeah.
What else you got, Rob? You got anything else good?
How'd your kids like going back to Africa? How did they like the experience and the hunts and everything?
They really liked it. I'd say my daughter probably enjoyed it more. She's a little badass. I got her into bow hunting when she was, like 8, I think. I got her a bow, and she has my husband's strength. So she was able to pull back 40 pounds on a bow at 10 years old, which really got me excited, because I'm like, now you can bow hunt legally in most places. And I don't know what she's at. I think she's at over 50 right now, and she's 13.
Wow. So
she bow hunted there, and she got a couple animals with her bow, which like made my whole life, and she was super excited about. My son hasn't really decided how he feels about hunting. He's hunted in Texas with us before and shot some animals, and then he shot some animals in Africa, but he's still a little young. He's kind of on the fence. But they enjoyed going. They thought it was pretty cool. Just even getting to see like giraffes walking around and stuff, like, was cool for them.
Thank you. What was I going to ask you?
Do we have questions?
Rob, that's actually what I was just going to bring up.
Well, I was going to say, I'm seeing there's people asking stuff.
No, there's definitely got to be questions. Randy, do you want to post them up real quick?
We had John asking Randy a few questions.
Yeah, actually, somebody who asked it.
Somebody did want to ask about Joel Turner.
Yeah, I think I saw that one.
Yeah.
It's funny because I just saw him today at the Sportsman Show. I haven't seen him in a while.
Really?
And what it's like learning from him?
It's life-changing. I don't think I've ever done a podcast without talking about Joel, because it absolutely changes and transforms your whole life. Anyone, when they come to me and ask about getting into archery, that's the first thing I tell them to do, is to go take Joel's class. So he does the Shot IQ, is what it was originally called. He's kind of transitioned into applying this science and this method that he developed for archery to all walks of life. So now he's working with like baseball teams and people that do like MMA, and he's found a way to like spread it so that it can work for everyone and all different sports. But for archery specifically, like that's where he started. And so he kind of took me under his wing, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, like right when I got a bow, thankfully, like before I started developing bad habits. And so he had like an in-person course that he was teaching that's about 3 hours long. And it's basically how to overcome target panic, because with how our brains are hardwired just biologically, as we are as human beings, everyone has target panic. Sometimes so bad that like people can't even get their sight on the target before they're punching the trigger because they're just like so panicked. So he has a way of explaining, you know, what's going on in your brain that's causing this to happen and how to overcome it, and basically created a formula that you apply to every single shot that you take. So once you take Joel's course, you moving forward have a shot process that you've blueprinted that you repeat every single time. And it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's so comforting because you have confidence. Like, you know how your shot is going to go every single time now for the rest of your life, because you're going to be making a controlled shot. And to have that kind of confidence, it's just like, it's changed my life, especially like when I'm doing hunts like my Cape Buffalo hunt, or I'm shooting lions. Like, if I was to go into that not knowing how my shot was going to go, that would be not only scary, but it would be dangerous. It would be dangerous for me. It'd be dangerous for the people involved. So yeah, I mean, I always say, if you can't do the in-person class, do the online class. It doesn't matter if you just picked up a bow yesterday and you're brand new and you don't know anything about archery, or if you've been, you know, shooting for 40, 50 years. He can change your life, you know, no matter where you're at in the process.
That's awesome. Sounds like he'd be a great guest on the show.
Oh, he does podcasts. Yeah, you should get a hold of him. I always end up talking about him so much that almost every podcast I do, they get a hold of him, and then he does one right after me.
Oh, there you go. Have you done any shows recently?
So I went to one today. That's where I saw Joel. My husband and I went to the Puyallup Sportsman Show. And we're going to go to the Hunt Expo.
Nice.
When's that? A week and a half in Salt Lake City. Yeah. Those are about the only two that I do. Shows aren't really like my thing. It's kind of fun to go see your friends and go talk to some companies that I have relationships with, but I like to devote as much of my time as I can hunting. So during hunting season, I'm gone all the time. I can't remember how many days I was gone this year, from like August through December, but it was a lot. So when I'm not hunting, I try to make sure I'm home with my family. You know, you have to do that whole balance your family life with whatever your hobbies are. So spend a lot of time with my kids. You know, we've got trips planned with them. And if I was to try to do the whole show circuit, I would be gone just as much as if it was hunting season.
Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do that.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. I'd say that's probably one of my biggest challenges always, is finding that balance. Because I also own 3 businesses. So it's like keeping my businesses going, you know, making sure I'm present at home as a wife, as a mother, and then trying to do what I love as much as I can. And yeah, it's a ongoing balancing act for sure.
How hard has that been to balance with everything, with your other businesses?
Especially hard when my husband was deploying all the time. It's easier when he's home. I definitely don't feel as guilty if there's stuff I have to go do because he's here with the kids, where for the past 14, 13 years before that, he was deployed all the time. So it's like, if I wanted to go do something or had to go do something, I'd have to find someone to watch the kids, you know, and most of the time it's family members, like it's the grandparents, but it's not fair to them, you know, to be getting pawned off to people all the time and not having, you know, knowing that dad's gone on a dangerous deployment is stressful for them. And then I'm leaving. So yeah, I had to try, really hard to make sure that I wasn't gone too much and they weren't affected by that. And I also didn't want them to then think that hunting was like a negative thing. Like, oh, hunting was what took my mom away all the time. Hunting's why I didn't have a mom, So I definitely didn't want that either. So, and that's what's great now where they're at the age where they can go with me. Like my goal now is to take my kids on as many of these hunts as I can. All the international ones, like if it's not interfering with their school schedule in any way, like I want them to be with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't have businesses, but with my job, I have been juggling or trying to juggle getting out to hunt with all of my other responsibilities, which is not easy. So the fact that you do have all these businesses and the kids and your husband's away, like I give you a lot of credit because that is not, I'm sure that has not been easy.
Yeah, it's definitely, I've had to make a lot of changes to like get where I'm at now. Like I eventually hired employees for my business. That was a big thing that I wasn't willing to do for a long time because your businesses, when you build them, they're so precious to you and you don't trust just to hand them over to someone. And so I wouldn't do that for like the first 7 years. I was working 7 days a week and my husband's like, just hire someone. And I finally broke down and did hire someone. And that was the best decision I ever made because I ended up with an awesome employee. She's been with me now for 7 or 8 years. And she basically runs everything. Like over time, I just gave her more and more responsibilities to now, like I only go into work like once a week, if that. And I can leave for a month at a time and she'll run everything. And so then when I started my second business, my husband said, okay, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to hire an employee like right out of the gate. So I had learned from my first experience that that's what I needed to do. So then when I started that second business, I hired one of my friends. And she runs that business now. So yeah, it's just takes time to get there. But then it's like once you have it all figured out, it runs pretty smoothly.
When does your husband retire? He retires again soon?
Yeah, so his official retirement is August 2026, but he might be medically retired sooner than that. He's got a lot of medical issues, surgeries. He just had a surgery 2 weeks ago. They had to replace his C5 or the disc between his C5 and C6 in his neck, complete disc replacement. He's had a hip surgery. And there's a couple more that I think they want him to have. So he might end up getting out before that.
How's he feeling?
He's feeling pretty good. He's going back to the gym, which he's not supposed to be doing against doctor's orders. I knew that was going to happen. He's kind of like me. He can't just like sit around, he goes stir crazy. So I don't know if that's going to affect the healing process that he's being stubborn and trying to go work out already. We'll see, I guess. But
Can I ask where he is in the Army?
Yeah, he's a Green Beret. So he went in when he was 18 as an X-ray, where you just go right into selection. So he became a Green Beret when he was 18. And so he's at almost 21 years now. He's had a lot of deployments. We've been married for 15 years. And when we got married, when we met, I didn't have any experience with anyone in the Army. Like I literally did not know I wasn't close with anyone, no family members, no friends. So I kind of got thrown into that lifestyle knowing nothing about it. And we did move. So we were in Kentucky for a while. And then we moved from Kentucky to North Carolina. And then from North Carolina back to Washington, which we're both from Washington. So it's been nice to be back home where our families are. So that was another thing that was a challenge for me is when we got married, moving to the other side of the country and trying to figure out how to hunt over there, hunt whitetail, which I'd never hunted whitetail. And, being in a new state with different laws and then him not hunting, so he couldn't be a resource for me. So I kind of had to figure it out on my own. And then as soon as I got that figured out, then we moved to North Carolina. So I'm like, now I got to figure out North Carolina. So I was happy to get back to Washington, to my stomping grounds where I could hunt blacktail and Roosevelt elk again.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But we are planning on moving. We're supposed to move when he retires.
Where do you think
So
you're going to
that'll
end up?
be either Wyoming or Montana or Idaho is the plan right now.
Very nice. All those places are gorgeous.
Yeah, we like Washington, but the politics have gotten a little bit much for us, so we need a change.
I hear you.
Well, if you think the politics out there are bad,
Yeah, I know.
Come hang out in New York for a little while.
Yeah.
Preaching to the choir. I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. But what's hunting like in New York? Because I don't know that I know anyone from New York.
Well, hi, I'm Chris. This is Rob.
Well,
We're from New
I know
York.
I do now. Yeah, but up until now, like I've never like talked to you about what the hunting is like there.
So in my experience, there's different types of whitetail hunting where we have upstate New York, which is where I basically grew up. And my dad would go hunting and not see one deer sitting all day for an entire week. Like it's big hills. I won't call them mountains because I know you guys have mountains out there, but you won't see anything where I live and I hunt. I'll see 15 in an hour.
Wow.
Just walking through, and then tons of does. I feel like around here, unfortunately, the deer aren't getting that big because there are now so many hunters and they just shoot whatever comes through, and they're not trying to help the population by letting those small ones grow into big ones.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and we can only do what we can do, but we can't control everybody else.
Well, that's interesting that you said that in that one spot you don't see that. Reminds me of blacktail hunting. That's how blacktail hunting is. They're like so elusive. You can hunt for a week and you're not going to see one deer. But then what's the difference in the distance of those two places you were talking about?
75, 100 miles.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think?
I don't know. I see deer all the time. I can't get away from them.
I know.
It's finding big deer is the problem. But you want to see deer, I can't get away from them.
Yeah, there's a ton.
So how many can you shoot in a season?
Ooh. Okay. So to break it down, you have an archery either sex tag. So you could conceivably take a buck during archery season. You also have an antlerless archery tag. You'll have a regular season buck tag. And then depending on what unit you hunt in, you can obtain antlerless tags. And the unit that I hunt in, it's almost unlimited. There, the deer population where I live and hunt is we have way too many deer. So there's more deer than people hunting them. So
crazy.
We can. I've never had a year when I've been able to punch all of my tags. I've come close, but I've never been able to punch them all. So, that's still out there on my bucket list.
Oh my gosh! See, that's where I'd want to go take my recurve. Like it's
Oh, we could put you 15 yards from anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything. They'd walk
Target
right
rich
past
environment. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, that's it. We could be drinking in my bar. You step out in my backyard.
Yeah.
We could take a couple, step back in. Something.
No, but we have and right next door in New Jersey, we're 15 minutes from New Jersey, and you could bait in New Jersey. Where here in New York, you can't bait.
Oh, okay.
So that's another. I guess you can call it a challenge. People feel very strongly either way.
Yeah.
But
land access is another problem we have here in New York. There's a lot of private land that you can't hunt. The state land is few and far between, and where the state lands are, it's at least in the lower part of New York, it's overcrowded. So hunting here it's not easy by any means, but it's not easy for the wrong reasons, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Huh. We'll have to try
our
it out
season also
sometime.
goes. We have an early season in the end of September, or mid-September, and then actual hunting season starts October 1st and goes until, what is it, like January?
Depending on where you are in the state.
Yeah.
I know out on Long Island they go until like their season like ends today or Sunday, I think, or something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah. And New Jersey is middle of September until end of February. Yeah,
Crazy.
so they have a long season. Connecticut has a long season. And then Pennsylvania, that's right next door to us. They have really weird rules where you get maybe one buck tag or maybe one doe.
Maybe one doe tag. Your buck tag you could buy.
But that's it. That's all you're getting.
Yeah.
So possibly two. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always amazes me all the different laws in every state, like how different, like that, like what I said when we moved from Washington to, well, we were right on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky. And I just remember like reading the rules and regulations and I was like, geez, like compared to Washington, because Washington, like we're so limited. Like our deer season is only going to be like 2 weeks for blacktail, which you can't even find blacktail. And then you're only going to give us 2 weeks to do it. Yeah, and then it's like over there, I can't remember how many deer you could shoot, but it was a ton. It was just crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the population's different, but I'm trying to remember there's something about spotlighting where there was a time that like spotlighting deer was legal or something. I was like, what the heck? Like, it was wild.
Well, I mean, everything's legal until you get caught.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with that, we did start late, but we did blow through the hour mark. So I do want to give you an opportunity, Sarah, if you could kind of if you could tell everybody where they can find your content on all your socials.
Yeah, I mostly just do Instagram. So PNW _Huntress is my page, which I think I'm shadow banned because you have to like type it all the way in to find it. So I think if you just search my name, I don't even know if it'll come up. So probably have to type in the full handle to find me. And then I have a website, which is PNWHuntress.com, which I put stuff up on there. I try to update like if I'm going to a show or I'm going to an archery event, or sometimes I'm an instructor at like a retreat, like a hunting retreat. So I try to put that information out on my website. So those are the two best places. And then I always encourage people to like reach out to me if they have questions about like any of the stuff we talk about. You know, I'm pretty good at answering all my messages or trying to mentor people. Like I love that part of social media. You know, it has its pros and cons, but I will say one thing I do enjoy is like meeting people or helping people, especially women. You know, there's a lot of women that are trying to get into hunting that maybe don't want to like go with their partner or want to try to do it independently or get into like the solo hunting stuff that I was talking about. So I always tell people like, feel free to reach out to me, any questions or advice.
Awesome.
Well, there you go. Rob, what else you got?
Listen, if there's anything we can ever help you with at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. You know, we
specifically like Greenland and Portugal hunting. Or
yes. I'm excited about that. Might do that.
Our platform is growing and growing, and we're hoping it continues to grow and be successful, but we would love to be able to help people and share information, you know, between people like yourself to help others. You know, that's important. Like we have an incredible, I hate calling it a sport, and I hate calling it a hobby, but we have this.
It's
hunting,
a passion, Rob. It's a lifestyle.
That's exactly it. You know, it's special, you know, and it's important to keep it going strong with our children and, you know, just keep passing it on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a huge advocate of that too, of people getting their kids involved. Because the only two growing demographics right now is children and women. So very important to take your kids out with you, even though sometimes it's a pain. Like no one wants a 5-year-old running around the elk woods with you. But I mean, like I said, if you have parents that are hunters, the chance that your kids are going to end up hunting are pretty high, especially like if there's the mom in the household doing it too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I guess that's.
No more questions. We're good.
That's all you got, Rob?
I could here. Will you come back on after the Alaska hunt?
Yes, I will. I
All
definitely
right.
want to talk about that hunt. Hopefully it's successful, and
I
hopefully
definitely
I
want to
don't
hear
die.
about it.
What do you
Yeah,
mean?
Absolutely.
no.
What do you mean? We're gonna have to do a show live from Portugal when we do the Red Stag hunt. I don't know what you're talking about, Rob. You're talking about part 3 already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess we'll have to wait till I retire.
That's a ways out. Yeah, that's out in 2027. So we still have 2026 that we can do the Portugal hunt.
There you
All
go.
right.
If it's into our sold, we'll be in
Okay.
touch.
Okay,
All
give me the
right.
details. I never say no. It's always my husband that's like, "Are you kidding me? What'd you sign up for now?"
That's awesome. Or Greenland.
So
Or
yeah,
Greenland,
Greenland would be fun too. See, he wants to do a caribou hunt. That is like on his list, his bucket list. And he's been having a hell of a time finding like someone in Alaska to do like just the drop off, like the do it yourself hunt. He's reached out to like 5 or 6 people, outfitters that say they do that, and no one will like return his calls or emails. So he's getting discouraged. I'm like, don't worry, we'll find you a caribou hunt.
We got a guy for that too.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we'll reach out to you. The guy's good.
Okay.
He
Sounds
owns
good.
our bow shop out here. He's been hunting all over the world. The guy's unbelievable. We're gonna have to have him on,
Sweet.
and it's gonna be an entire series of stories. And yeah,
Yeah, what's
Guys.
his name?
Rob Cerrone. He owns
Okay.
Targeteers Archery Pro Shop in Brunswick, New Jersey.
Okay.
And like he
Nice.
grew
Well,
up
yeah.
with he grew up with Fred Bear. Like for
Oh,
like
sweet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and he's got stories
His mentor.
of like who was it, Chris? His mom or his dad smoking cigarettes next to Fred Bear while he was on his oxygen.
Oh yeah, when he was at the
Yeah.
show one time, he was talking about it was a couple times ago that we were down there, and he was telling the story where one of his parents was smoking a cigarette, and Fred Bear stopped what he was doing at whatever show and like came walking over, like dragging his oxygen tube to come talk to him, and it's like parents were smoking next to him and everything. It was like, oh my god, like what are you doing?
Yeah, somebody ran over. It's like, you got to put that out. He's gonna explode.
Yeah. Oh
But,
man,
yeah.
that's funny.
And he's got tons of stories like that. The guy's been all over. He got a polar bear recently.
That's another one after my brown bear is polar
Yep.
bear. So I need to talk to this guy for sure.
Oh, absolutely. He was there for muskox, and then they
Mhm.
didn't see one the entire time. It was a blizzard the entire time, and then it was like the
Oh.
last half an hour before he was leaving. A polar bear came in, stalking the dogs that they had.
Oh,
Yeah,
crazy.
Unbelievable stories. And now
Wow.
we can't get the bear back because was that Canada? And
I think it was
can't-
Canada, yeah.
because
That
it's
was the
considered
problem.
an aquatic animal, so you can't take
Okay.
it over from Canada to the United States. So he can't even get it.
Oh. Well, that's
Yeah.
like my lion. Same with my lion. I can't get my lion either. So I feel the pain.
Yeah, but
We know a way to do that too. We'll talk later.
Do you guys have Trump on speed dial? Because I'm hoping I reached out to Don Jr. I'm like, can you have your dad like change this law for me?
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see. Yeah. So, okay. Well, you guys are a great resource, it sounds like, and I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for taking the time. We know it's a lot, and we know it was a lot of kind of coordination to get you here, and with some of the technical difficulties, which I am naturally always going to blame on Dave, and Rob was late.
And we got it done.
know.
We
But
got it
we
done.
did it. So we're here.
Yeah.
We did it, and this was great. So thank you for stopping by. This was great.
Yeah. Okay. We'll stay in touch and we'll get some hunts planned.
Definitely. So
Yes,
everybody that was watching this and everybody that will watch it in the future, thank you for tuning in. Listen, if you're going to be at the Great American Outdoor Show, Dave and I will be down there tomorrow. We're heading down with the boys from Only Bows. Hit us up. We're going to be there Saturday. We'll be there Sunday. Maybe we'll go out and do a little party on Saturday night if anybody's in the area. Love to meet everybody. New York State and the tri-state area, the Empire State Outdoor Sportsman Show, booth 201 and 202. Pursuit Live is going to be there. You can't miss us. You got to walk right by us when you come in the front door. Please stop by. We'd love to see everybody. Sarah, Rob, thank you so much. Dave, I know you're listening in the background there, so thank you for stepping in the beginning. We're sorry that we had these issues. Everybody, stay with us. If you think it was great, it's only going to get better from here. So again, Sarah, Rob, thank you all.
Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
Everybody,
Also, a big shout out to Randy for stepping in and joining.
there you
He's
go.
been a big addition. So, Randy,
Listen.
thank you for coming on.
Listen, we got a lot going on behind the scenes. It's only going to get better from here. So, with that, everybody, we'll see you next time right here on Pursuit Live.
Okay.